going on, y'all? Welcome back to Ideal Offseason. Another team's been bounced from the NBA playoffs, and that's the Orlando Magic. So today, we're going to be putting the GM cap on and helping the Orlando Magic navigate this very interesting offseason. Honestly, this is probably the one I'm most looking forward to so far out of all the other ones that I've done. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alrighty, so we're back here on the Ideal Offseason spreadsheet. For those of you that don't know, this is just a little spreadsheet that I threw together in like 10 minutes just to kind of help me visualize this series a little bit better. If you're interested in it, feel free to let me know, and I can connect you guys with it. Let me know in the comments. That's a reminder to go like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every comment on my YouTube channel so far, and I intend to keep on doing so. But anyway, let's talk about the Orlando Magic. Honestly, really great season, all said and done. This is a team that didn't have very many expectations coming in because it's a very young team, and you look at who we have left going into this 2024 offseason right now. It's an extremely young basketball team, right? And one that didn't really have a lot of like noticeable names. Franz Wagner was still coming into his own. Paolo Banchero had just had his rookie season. And they're like, oh, how much can the second year guy get better? Spoiler alert, he gets a lot better. Jalen Suggs had a lot of question marks. He got a lot better, right? Cole Anthony kind of found a role on this team. Mo Wagner found a role on this team, right? Jonathan Isaac was healthy. There was a lot going on this team that was a little bit different. And most importantly, they settled on an identity, and that was defense, right? This team was like, we're going to be a really good defensive basketball team, and that they were. They were great at it. The perimeter defense was awesome. The rim defense was a little bit lackluster, but it didn't matter. They had great perimeter D. But one thing this team could not do this whole season was shoot the basketball. If you look around, not a lot of shooting going on here. And it was capitalized with Franz in that Game 7 going 1 for 15 from the field. Very unfortunate. Paolo Banchero looks like he's got the makings of maybe a good three-point shooter in the future. So does Franz, but right now they're not quite there. Jalen Suggs is just now kind of learning how to shoot, and he's capable right now, right? That's how I'd put it. In the playoffs, he looks a lot better, but he was capable. Cole Anthony can kind of do it, but it's kind of like, everybody else on this team, Joe Ingles kind of. Caleb Houston in theory, Jet Howard in theory, Anthony Black, not really at all. Jonathan Isaac had moments, not really. Mo Wagner, not really. So this team needed shooting really bad, right? It needed shooting really bad, and that's what we're going to try to do with this offseason. And I want to remind you guys the point of this series. This series is not necessarily to just win a championship. That's not what this is about. This is about giving you guys the most realistic, but also the most productive offseason that I think a team can have. When we rebuilt the Spurs, we weren't trying to win a championship. We were trying to set them up for like the next 20 years the best way we can in one offseason. Some teams like the Philadelphia 76ers or something, right? We're trying to win a championship. The Clippers, we're trying to win a championship. The Orlando Magic, we're not necessarily going to be championship contenders next year. This is a young team that just took a big step forward on their journey. A big step forward, right? They made it to the playoffs, and in the first round, they went to Game 7. That's amazing. As the lower-seeded team, that's so awesome. But that doesn't mean that we're ready to compete for a championship. But what I do want to do is take us to the next step, right? And what does that mean? We've got these young players on the team, right? Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jalen Suggs. Like, that's kind of our core three right now. I think we can all agree, right? It's like, okay, how do we make their lives easier, right? How can we make their jobs a little bit easier? Well, one, if Franz and Paolo and Suggs all became just better shooters this offseason, which I'm sure they're going to work on a ton, right? That's going to make their lives easier. But I can also make their lives easier by getting them some better players around them. And by that, I mean some complementary players, like a point guard that can actually shoot on this team, not named Cole Anthony. We can try to find someone else. Like a shooting guard on this team that can come and hit some shots for us at some point. Like Wendell Carter's a nice option at center. Mo Wagner's a nice option at center. But we need to complement these guys with some more 3-and-D type players to kind of help them, just get their games going. And we've got a lot of assets to work with, so let's dive into this a little bit. The first thing we'll take a look at is cap space going into the 2024 offseason. We've still got $36 million in just cap space to work with, right? Like, so that's just what we got right now that we can go out and sign people with. Now, free agency is never all that enticing at this point because nobody really hits free agency anymore, but we still have $36 million to work with. We also have to keep the perspective that in a couple seasons, we're going to have to pay guys like Paolo, Suggs, Franz. I believe Suggs is next season. Even Cole Anthony, his new contract is just starting to kick in, so we have to pay these guys eventually, right? We also have a lot of draft picks going forward. We've got 2 draft picks this year. I intend on using both of them just because we want to keep on bringing in some more young talent into this team as we develop the other ones. But we've got like a plethora of other first-round picks going forward, and these are all pretty solid ones at the end of the day. So we've got assets that we can move to go bring in somebody to help this team. All right, so what decisions do we have to make like before we even start any of this? You'll see here, this is the current roster that we're working with. Anybody in blue right here, they've got a team option. There's no player options or anything, but we've got a few team options. First one, Paolo Banchero. Can anybody guess if we're going to pick up his team option? You guessed it, kids. We're bringing him back. Joe Ingles, $11 million. I don't think we're bringing back Jinglin' Joe for that amount. Does that mean that I'm not going to bring him back onto the team? No, like, because I'm more than willing to bring Joe Ingles back on the team, but for right now, that's not really something I'm all that interested in, like, at least in paying him that much money. So we can get him back on, like, a minimum contract or something like that. I think that's fine. I'm pretty sure when they had his contract negotiations last year, they're like, hey, if you blow it out of the water, like, yeah, we'll give you your $11 million again, but if not, like, you're here as a rental anyway because we don't have anyone else to pay. Mo Wagner, yeah, picking up his option of $8 million. His energy and everything is awesome. Honestly, I think he should have probably played more out there. I like Mo Wagner as a center. I honestly think between Wendell and Mo, I don't think we're going to find much better at center for this season. The free agency market's kind of iffy. We'll probably look at the draft if there's certain players available to try and get one to develop. So that could be an option for us. But otherwise, like, I don't know what better options there would be because we're trying to add shooting, right? And like, what shooting big is available this offseason? There's just not many in general, but also we're not going to be able to get any of them. And there's really not any in free agency. So I think this is probably the center core that we'll be rocking with for this year. And that is totally fine by me. Jalen Suggs, definitely keeping him around. No problem there. Franz Wagner. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Yep. He's sticking around too. So with Joe Ingles off the team, that leaves us with $47 million in cap space and 5 open roster spots. 2 of them we're going to use on draft picks, and I'm not certain that we're not going to trade some of these people that are already on this team. So let me explain to you my first conundrum on this team, right? I need to add shooting, and where am I going to do that, right? Is Jalen Suggs a point guard? I don't necessarily think so. I see him as more of a 2 that can play the 1 sometimes when we want to go big, right? I don't see him as a primary ball handler yet, so I want to keep Jalen Suggs at the 2 if possible this year. Cole Anthony, I like Cole Anthony a lot. I think he's a nice scoring backup point guard that this team needs because we don't necessarily have a lot of, like, go-to bucket getters on this team. Franz isn't great at getting his own shot yet. Paolo, it's pretty limited to like 1 or 2 ways. He'll get better and everything, and Suggs is kind of limited. So having a guy that's a little bit more of a dynamic, just offensive option off the bench, I think that's awesome for this team, right? And he's a capable scorer. I meant to say capable shooter. Like, he shoots like 34%. It's not great. So maybe that's something that I want to explore. But I like Cole Anthony. I just think someone that can get his own shot is valuable to us right now. But then I'm like, okay, I also have Anthony Black. Anthony Black had an interesting rookie season. He even started at points this year. His defense looked really, really good. Shooting, not very good. Kind of Josh Giddey-esque in a way. Big point guard, really good passer, really good facilitator, good defensive player, not a great shooter, doesn't fit in well. But, like, there's potential there, right? But, like, what kind of team am I building if I'm building Anthony Black, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero? Like, that doesn't, like, click very well. That doesn't make a ton of sense. And so the point guard position is the obvious one that I think we can upgrade because, like I said, I don't think we're getting a center that makes a ton of sense for this team. So unless I move Suggs over to the 1 temporarily, like, I don't exactly know where I can add the shooting otherwise. So that's kind of the predicament I'm in, right? I've also got some players like Jonathan Isaac, who his full contract isn't necessarily guaranteed, and it's not guaranteed until January of 2025, which means, like, I could just keep him on roster and maybe use him as a trade piece at some point. That could be kind of cool. Jet Howard. I'm personally just, like, not a huge fan of Jet Howard. In an ideal world, he becomes, like, a 3-and-D player, but I don't know, like, I don't think his handle's very good, so, like, I don't see him being able to, like, create his own stuff. Like, his shooting form should be good, and he was just a rookie, so, like, I don't want to criticize him too much, but, like, I don't know, I didn't like the pick. I honestly didn't even like the Anthony Black pick when they made it either. During the draft, I was like, I think Orlando messed up both picks. Like, Anthony Black was nice. I think there was better options that made more sense for the team at the time, but, you know, those are kind of the things we have to talk about. So is there a world where I turn a Jet Howard and Jonathan Isaac into something? Because Jonathan Isaac has value if he's healthy. Really good defensive player, very, very versatile, potential shooter. So what do I do with this team? How can I get somebody to make this team better outside of the draft? But you know what? Now that you guys know all the crazy thoughts that are going through my head and everything, let's actually go and start making some moves. We said we wanted to make a pick, so we're going to make a pick. This is Fanspo. For those of you that don't know, this is a really cool website that you can do a bunch of different like NBA and NFL like things on here, like trade simulators, draft simulators. And the reason we use the draft simulators, I feel like it adds a sense of realism. There's a bunch of like AI components that go into being like, okay, who could possibly be available with your pick, right? And okay, so we've let it simulate. It's done all of its AI thinking. We have the 16th pick in the draft. Who is available for us to take? I see Kyle Filipowski. I know that you guys look at that and you see, ooh, potential like 3-point shooting center. That's valuable, right? That's what we were talking about. And size, 7 feet tall. That's valuable in itself, right? So interesting player already. Devin Carter, interesting player. Probably don't need another point guard that's not a great shooter. You've his Missy, more of a run, jump, and dunk guy. Tyler Smith, kind of a dynamic potential wing. And then there's Kel Ware, another 7-foot center that is a good shooter, right? Like, I wouldn't call him elite by any means, but he was good. He was efficient. The mechanics look really good. And he's athletic, right? That's kind of the thing that puts him over like a Filipowski for me. So, like, here's some of the stats on, like, Filipowski, right? Like, 16 points a game, 8 rebounds, played great for Duke this year. Yeah, I would agree. Really smart player. I would agree he's a good passer. Yeah, I would agree. Shot is solid. Solid ball handle. I don't know about if I'd say that, but fair enough. Switchable defender. No, I don't necessarily know about that either. I don't trust like his coordination and everything. I don't think he was all that tough and at least in comparison to like other bigs. I hate calling players not tough, but like that's kind of just what I say. I feel like he kind of crumbled a bit against bigger guys, and 230 is pretty light for a sophomore center in college that's 7 foot tall. Whereas I look at like a Kel Ware, right? And I'm seeing 7 foot 210. And he was also a sophomore, so also kind of late, but you're getting a lot more athleticism out of him. And that's where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a light center, at least he's going to be a little bit more athletic. But let's take a look at some of the things. Good rim protector, right? We didn't have a ton of rim protection in Orlando. Good shooter, not elite, right? They kind of took the words out of my mouth. Great mechanics. Solid around the rim, run, jump, and dunk type guy. Those guys are valuable. He has flashed a little bit of interesting passing. I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch a ton of Indiana this year. I don't like watching Big Ten basketball. I think it kind of sucks, but is what it is. An agile 7-footer. Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah, he's no Wembanyama or Mully. There's just not many of those guys, but like he's a lot more athletic and coordinated than a Filipowski is. So what I'm going to do with this pick is I'm going to draft Kel Ware. So Kel Ware would be making that much money. We'd get him for 4 seasons, and I'm just going to throw him here for now. You could probably make the case that like Mo Wagner's going to play like the 4 or something. Jonathan Isaac could in theory move over to like the 3 here, I could see, and then maybe we make Jet Howard this. So let's just kind of mess around with this a little bit and assume Mo Wagner's here. Kel Ware's playing like backup center just for like rotation purposes, right? Because I could see us just wanting to go like real big like that, real physical. And even if Kel Ware doesn't play like right away necessarily, he's going to get the chance to develop and get a lot better. We've got a project center that could be a starting center in the NBA. I truly do think Kel Ware could be a starting center. He's got a lot of interesting characteristics to him. So if he's put in the right place to develop, I don't know why he couldn't. But alrighty, we do have a 2nd round pick now, and I'm not sure what exactly I want to do with this 2nd round pick because what is it? It's the 49th pick, so we're not going to get anybody like incredible with this one most likely. But, you know, brings on another young guy to the team, a project. Given the team that we have, we can afford to probably take on another project because everybody else we go after this offseason are going to be like ready to play players anyway. And this guy probably doesn't have much of a shot at getting on the court this year with some of the other guys that we're developing. I see Baylor Shireman. This is a guy that I've taken in a couple other things. He's kind of an interesting one to me. I see a Kwame Evans Jr. He's pretty raw. Like I look at him in like the 7 points a game. He's a big like defensive minded, like I wanted to call him more of a 3. They have him as more of like a power forward. Really good athlete. He's really strong. This is like his high school stuff, so don't judge him from there. But didn't quite find his footing in like college basketball. I feel like could be better in the NBA, but I also feel like the Orlando Magic take a lot of these guys, so I'm not sure I necessarily want to go get another one of them. Who else do we have available here? Judah Mintz, Bronny James. Ooh. Interesting. Nobody's taken Bronny James at this point in the draft. I actually kind of find that hard to believe. Well, 49th pick, there'd be 10 picks left like after this, 11-ish picks. So I feel like somebody takes him in the middle of the second round. And here's my quick thoughts on Bronny James. I could totally see Bronny James being a good defensive like guard. I'm not sure he's a point guard. I think he's a smaller 2 that can put the ball on the floor a little bit. I think he's a really good athlete. I think his shooting form's good, and I think his defensive instincts are already there at the NBA level. In all honesty, like I'm not like trying to like ride anybody's lap or anything like that. I truly do think he can be an NBA player, and I completely understand why they're trying to just push him to the pros right away, because college basketball is so dumb, and they're not getting you ready for the NBA by playing there anyway. So you might as well just come to the league now and start working out with the pros. Like that's just going to be better, and I do think he can develop into something. Now, is LeBron James going to come to Orlando if we take Bronny James? I don't necessarily think so, because we're not winning a championship or anything. Maybe he does, and that'd be a really interesting like parallel for this NBA team. But you know what? For the fun of it, we got the 49th pick. Like let's take Bronny James. So Bronny James would make this much money, 2-year deal. I'm gonna throw him here. Caleb Houston might be moving around in positions at some point, but that's fine. I said we need a project. Bronny James is a nice project to me, and you know what? If at the end of games or something, if we're blowing people out and Bronny James gets to get into the game, that's going to sell some extra tickets right there. So you know what? It is not an unreasonable move at all. But let's take these picks out. We're going to move these up because now it's trade season, right? Now I want to explore how we can bring some more talent to this team because, like I said, I want to talk about the point guard position. Let's just look at point guards in general first. Let's just look at the point guards that are available in free agency. D'Angelo Russell, really good name. He's probably the best and only one I'd even consider to be available. I'm not sure he's going to the Orlando Magic. I truly think he's going to end up on the Spurs, and I called that in my ideal offseason video, and y'all thought I was crazy at first. So now there's actual momentum behind it. So you know what? There you guys go. So I don't see anybody in free agency for us to pick up, and I want to add somebody to this starting 5 to jumpstart this team a little bit. We're not going like all in or anything. I want to spark something, but I also want to take a look at like who we have in free agency because we don't want to miss out on bringing someone back that we want. Joe Ingles, we said we want to bring him back. Mo Wagner still on the team. Chumo Kiki or Okeke. I don't personally feel the need to bring Okeke back. I don't exactly know what he does all that well. He's a nice defender. He's an okay 3-point shooter, and like I don't need like a small power forward on this team. I kind of don't. So sorry, Okeke fans. I don't think it's all that important. Goga Bitadze. He was nice this year. I don't feel the need to bring him back, though. He can go help some other team for sure. And then like Markelle Fultz, Gary Harris. I just didn't understand the point of Gary Harris on this team. I'm sure he was a nice vet. Don't feel the need to bring him back. Markelle Fultz, while I like his game, he's obviously not worth like $17 million or anything, and nobody's going to give him that. I like his game, but I don't think he fits on here. We need somebody that's going to bring a little more spacing to this team, and I need to prioritize these last like 3-ish roster spots with doing something like that. So I think for the time being, this is where we're going to be leaving all of our free agents here, except for probably Joe Ingles we'll probably come back to. But this means I got to start making some trades, right? I've got to find a way to bring in a better basketball player, right? Primarily at the point guard position. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look through like the salary cap for next year and be like, okay, who are some point guards that are going to be available that a team would be willing to trade, right? Like Damian Lillard, he's not going anywhere. Could we get in on the Trae Young and DeJounte Murray sweepstakes? Yeah, we could. Are those the right players to bring around him? Around like Paolo and Franz? I don't necessarily think so because I want to keep developing like their game as well. I'd love a point guard that can play without the basketball too, that can space, because like I don't want to take the ball out of Franz and Paolo's hands. Like we want to keep helping them develop. Like a Zach LaVine isn't really what I'm looking for. Like Kyrie Irving's not going to be available, but I'll let you guys know some names when I find them. We could take a page out of the Pelicans book. They brought in CJ McCollum to kind of try to help develop the team a little bit because he'd be a nice veteran to bring in. He can play with or without the basketball. He can shoot a little bit. We'd be on the hook for a little bit of money for a guy that might decline really fast in front of our eyes, but that is an interesting option. Anthony Simons is definitely someone we're going to think about. I know some Portland fans aren't too high on Anthony Simons because he's not really playing like any winning basketball. I don't think Portland stood a chance at playing winning basketball regardless. Anthony Simons can play with or without the basketball. He's a good shooter. He's a good athlete, and he's on the age timeline. Anthony Simons is 24 years old, so he fits in with all the other guys we have on the team. If we take a look at this most recent season, 22 points a game, shot 38% from 3 on 8 attempts a game, 5 assists. Like I said, he plays with or without the basketball, and that's on a team that doesn't have a ton of spacing around him or anything. And if you look at the rest of his contract, where did Anthony Simons go? We still have 2 years left in his contract, so we could really have some time to like figure out what we're doing with him on the next one. So Simons is definitely an option. Colin Sexton is probably a name to watch as well. Like, he could at least come in and be an impactful player right away. Like let's just take a look at Colin Sexton really quick. What are we getting with my boy here? You're getting a 25-year-old, so still on kind of the same timeline. Played plenty of starter minutes this year, 18 points a game, 39% from 3 on half the attempts, but he had really good moments where he was just such a shot creator. He got downhill, he created for everyone else on the team. I could see Colin Sexton being a good option as well. Kind of the same thing too. You have just about the same amount of time, and it's probably an easier trade to make, but I'm going to see if I can't find one more option. Kobe White is probably another one that we can look at. I'm not sure the Chicago Bulls want to trade with the Orlando Magic after the swindling of Nikola Vucevic that they just went through, so I'm going to assume that probably won't happen. I want to keep it realistic, right? But I don't necessarily see somebody else that can come in right away and help. So let's see what we can't do to make an Anthony Simons trade work. And for any of you that have watched the Portland Trailblazers episode of this, we've done this trade before, right? I don't remember exactly what it was, but it involved some picks. It involved like Jonathan Isaac and stuff, but we're going to see like what we can do to kind of benefit both these teams. All right, so I've got the Portland Trailblazers queued up here, and this is where I start to think about it a little more, right? So we want Anthony Simons coming over to this team here, right? We've got the cap space to absorb him. We don't have to send much over. Obviously, we've got some assets that we can give to them, but what do the Portland Trailblazers want, right? We want this to be realistic. What are the things that this team wants? This team doesn't have a ton of cap space at all, right? So one of the things they're trying to do this offseason, if they're smart, is they're trying to unload some cap space because they're not going to be good. The Trailblazers owner doesn't want to pay all this money to what's going to, pretty much regardless, be a bad team. They also want to start building around Scoot Henderson because they had a very similar problem to the Orlando Magic where they had no shooters on the team, so they couldn't help their young point guard with some spacing, especially because their center can't even be a run, jump, and dunk center. Like, he's just floating in the middle of the court, which is annoying in itself. And they had too many people kind of playing the same position. So moving Simons kind of fixes that, right? That lets them prioritize Scoot Henderson a little bit. How can we help them out with shooting? Well, there's a couple ways we can do that. Jet Howard is a young player for them to develop, right? And he's supposed to be a shooter. Send him over there. He's a wing that they can use. He was a lottery pick last season. There's a lot of value there to that, right? That makes a ton of sense. We can also throw another shooter at them if we want to, in the name of where is he on this? And Caleb Houston. So that could be something we could do. If they want a player that could be more impactful right away, we'd throw a Jonathan Isaac at them. Like, let me just try this trade quick and see if the money makes sense. Okay, the money makes sense right now. So that's totally fine. So the money works in itself. Are they going to ask for anything else is the question. I'm not so sure. Like, are they going to want to do like a type of sign and trade with Gary Harris or something? Don't really think so. They can just go get Gary Harris on their own if they really want to. Like Joe Ingles, is that a name that they would want us to throw in so that they could have like a veteran or something? Because then we could theoretically go back and like accept his team option or whatever. I'm not so sure they're probably all that interested in paying him either because they're trying to save on some cap space. So what if we toss them like a Caleb Houston too? Does that make some sense? Like, because let's look at our team for a second, right? So let's say we dropped Caleb Houston and we dropped Jet. We've still got Anthony Black that we have to develop, Bronny James, Kel'el Ware. I mean, we're still developing Paolo and Franz and Suggs into some capacity, right? So like, I think dropping those two guys, probably not the biggest deals in the world. Because what they're going to want more so is they want the cap flexibility. Because even if we traded them Jonathan Isaac, right, they're probably cutting him. Like, he doesn't make sense to have on their team this year. It helps them save some money, right? In this case, they're taking back two players that could potentially play next to Scoot Henderson, and both of them kind of unproven, so you can kind of try them and see which one works, right? In a sense, without paying much money at all. You're saving a ton of cap room by doing that. You're freeing up the positional space. What they want is our draft picks, right? And that's where we start to throw a little bit more at them. So draft picks have become a little bit more valuable since like the Rudy Gobert trade. People are a little scared to mortgage their whole future on like one person, but like we're not giving them a ton of player in return. So I feel like 2 first-round picks is probably fine, considering like a Pascal Siakam is considered like 3. Anthony Simons is probably worth 2, and I'm cool with doing that. So let's reward them like right now by giving them our 2025 pick next year. We already have the Nuggets pick for next year as well. We don't want to probably give them 2 in one draft. That gives them like too many young players coming in at once. They probably want to space them out a little bit. So we give them our Magic pick next year. We'll still have the Nuggets pick, which will probably be worse than our pick, but that's fine. We'll still have a first round pick. So we'll presume that he's going over there in that trade, and that's just totally fine. But what other pick do they want? We can't give them this Magic pick. We have this pick, which has swap rights between like 3 different teams, and we kind of get the worst one of it. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We could just kind of say like, hey, we're going to be a playoff team going forward. Do you want our Magic 2027 first round pick as well? Not the worst idea. Like, it's either that or they want like a future one in like 2029 so that they can be like, hey, maybe we'll be good by the year like 2027, 28, 29, and we've got this extra first round pick, and maybe there's a good player that becomes available and we want to go get him at that time, right? Maybe that makes some sense to them. So I think we give them one that's a little bit more down the line right now. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to give them the 2029 first round pick, and that's going to be the trade for Simons. I guess I should make sure that this like trade actually goes through and everything. That's a success. They're saying they're losing more games. That's probably true. They're trading one of their best players, but they save a lot of money. They get some players to develop, some guys that help Scoot Henderson win, and we get a new point guard. So Jet Howard and Caleb Houston, you guys are off the team. Cole Anthony, you can move up there. You guys fall out of the rotation because you're not even on the basketball team. Okay, so now we move Cole Anthony back here. Anthony Black moves here. And then we add Anthony Simons to the team and all his money. We get to throw Anthony Simons here at our new starting point guard. So now we've got a shot creator. We've got a guy that can make shots next to Jalen Suggs, who can be the guard defender, like the elite lockdown defender that he is. He can work on his spacing. We've got a little more spacing working next to Franz and Paolo. Still got Wendell. And we've got the Cole Anthony option. Anthony Black can keep developing. Anthony Black might even play like a Josh Giddey role here, where he's kind of like the backup 2. I could see being a thing, and then we have Bronny here, so let's just assume that that's kind of the case. Okay, so we've got the guard position pretty well figured out. We've got some bigs on the team. We've got pretty much our core rotation kind of figured out, but we've got 4 roster spots left, so we can go get another impact player to maybe play on the wing, because maybe Kel Ware isn't someone we necessarily plan on playing this year. Let's do this first. Let's bring Joe Ingles back in on like do we want to give him like a $5 million contract or something just because he's that valuable in the locker room and we don't want him to go anywhere else? We have nobody else to pay this season anyway, right? So can I just go bring Joe Ingles back? I think that's fine to do. Let's go prioritize Jinglin' Joe. We're giving him 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to give him a team option again to be like, hey, if you're really good again, we'll bring you back. But for the time being, we're kind of going to throw you like here, and you'll just be a very good asset to have on the team. All right, 3 roster spots left, 18 million in cap space. Let's go buy somebody, and then we'll use the last 2 spots to just bring some vets on this team, because this is a young basketball team. Young guy. All young guys here. 2 pretty young guys here. How old is Jonathan Isaac even at this point? I don't know. Younger guys and really young guy. And pretty young guys. Yeah, we need some vets on this team, but who else can we go get? Like, what even else is out there? Let me just go see like best players available. Like, is there anybody? Ooh, Buddy Hield would make a lot of sense on this team. Bringing in just a knockdown shooter. I don't need this open anymore. Is Buddy Hield an option for us? I mean, I don't know where he fits in rotation-wise, but it's not my problem if we have too much talent, right? Is he going to want to sign with us, though, with that in mind? Probably not, because he probably wants to prove himself next year. Does, like, a Luke Kennard or a Malik Beasley sound interesting to anybody? Like, we could just throw a bunch of money at, like, Malik Beasley or something for a season. That could be kind of interesting. Or a Luke Kennard, just because we really want to have some knockdown shooting on this team. I don't hate that because I don't think there's any shot that the Grizzlies pick up the $14 million for Luke Kennard. I just don't think that's possible. They're really big on this free agency season and trying to build this team up the way they want to. So let's assume that, like, let's take a look at Luke Kennard and how he performed this last season. What's going to be a fair asking price for a Luke Kennard? Right? 11 points a game. That's right. That's because he was a starter for a lot of this season, wasn't he? Even though he didn't play like a ton of games, but he shot the shit out of the basketball. Absolutely stroked it. So what if we give Luke Kennard like a 2-year, because again, we don't got to pay anybody like right now. I'll give Luke Kennard like a 2-year, say like $20 million, $22 million, so like kind of $11 million. Let's say we're paying him 10.5. Let's say we're paying him 10.5 over 2 seasons to just come in here and be another option for us, right? We can move him to like here for now. You guys tell me what you think the rotation would be, but just another option at shooter, right? Just another shooting option. Now let's go try and find some vets to try and round out like the rest of our forwards and everything. I love the idea of bringing Jeff Green onto this team. Like, there's no way they pick up the $8 million club option on him, and he's just a nice vet to come in and come just be like a tough guy on this team. He could just be the bruiser for us. So give me Jeff Green on a 1-year minimum. So Jeff Green, he'd be getting this much money. Yup, 1 year. Jeff Green can slide in over, I don't even know, like he's here. This rotation, that's not for me to figure out and everything. I'm just putting talent on this team right now because this is kind of an odd one to look at. Yeah, no, I don't know what we're doing with rotation with this team at all. It's going to be left up for chance, but the point is we're adding shooting, we're adding vets, things like that. Let's go find like one more center to maybe throw on this roster. You know, we probably don't need one because we got Mo, Paulo, Wendell, Kel-El. That's enough of those guys. We've got like, that's the thing, we got a lot of guys that can play a lot of positions on this team. That's what's so interesting, because Anthony Black could be another point guard, maybe even Bronny could. Hard to say. Who else is available? Who's just a good vet that we can bring into this team? Like, I don't want to bring Chuma Okeke back. I'm not all that interested in it. Should I bring in like another point guard? Like, should I look at guards too? I don't know who else is even out there for me to go get. Alec Burks is an interesting name. D'Anthony Melton's just a good defender. I'm not really seeing a guard that I necessarily want, so I think I'm going to go back to forwards and just try to find like another wing or something to add to this team, like a Utah Watanabe. Kind of interesting, like Lamar Stevens. Sam Hauser's going to be brought back there for sure. Like a Kenyon Martin Jr. doesn't really do a ton for us. Gallinari? Do I want to just bring in like a Gallinari as kind of just like a pure shooting big? Because we don't necessarily have that as an option, do we? Is that what we want to do? Do I want to bring in another Caucasian dude to just be a shooter? Because I'm doing a lot of that right now. Or do I want another like point guard that can shoot? I don't hate the Gallinari thing at the end of the day. He's been around the league for a little bit. It's good to have a couple vets, but we have a couple vets now. We've got Jeff Green, we got Joe Ingles. We don't need like a really old vet like that. Let's find somebody that can play a little bit. Jonte Porter, always a good option if you're trying to get your bread up on the team. You know what? I like the idea of a Jordan McLaughlin. We only have to probably give him a minimum contract and a small minimum contract at that. He shot over 40% from 3 this season. Yeah, it wasn't a ton of minutes or anything, but I like his energy. He's no like NBA scrub by any means, so I'm going to bring Jordan McLaughlin in. And so Jordan can fit in right here as another point guard. All right. There is your 2024-2025 Orlando Magic. What have we done to this team? We brought in Anthony Simons, a new scoring option on this team that's going to provide some shooting to the first 5. We brought in a Kel-El Ware, hopefully a future starting center that we can develop. That's going to be a dynamic, kind of all-around player around guys like Paulo and Franz and Suggs, because we're going to need a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Think of a Brook Lopez type. We kept Mo Wagner around, right? We brought in some vets like Jeff Green. Joe Ingles is coming back, right? Brought in some much needed shooting in Luke Kennard, right? A Jordan McLaughlin is an option, right? Like we brought in some guys there. We've got some projects like Bronny James that are going to fill some seats. I think I'd be pretty excited as an Orlando Magic fan if I saw a team like this. It's like, okay, we didn't mortgage our future at all. We're still under the luxury tax, which is awesome, especially in Florida. You can make all the money then as the owner. So we'll still be able to pay these guys and be pretty comfortable going forward. The question is, like, are we going to be able to develop these guys into superstars? That's the question. The good news is you still have picks to trade up in later drafts and stuff if you think that there's a guy that could really help you. But for the time being, I think this team could be a lot better next year, right? I think this fixes a lot of problems, and I'd be curious to see him play. But you guys let me know what you think at the end of the day. I'm always curious to hear, but until then, really appreciate you guys, and let's go watch some playoff basketball tonight. Thanks so much.